Good morning, everybody. It's Graham once again from Unearthed and another episode of Detecting Talk. Before I start this one out, I want to give a little shout out to a gentleman called Dean Kennington from New Zealand and his son William. I talked to Dean quite a bit on social media. He was a detectorist and still is a detectorist, but he used to live in the UK and did a lot of detecting in the Lincolnshire area, and now he's out in New Zealand, still doing the business. Good to speak to you. Hope you're both well, and nice to touch base with you guys every now and then. So lovely to see that we've got people from New Zealand watching the old Unearthed YouTube channel. Heartwarming. Right, we'll make a start. This particular episode is based on questions that I get asked every single day of the week, including weekends, from beginners that are wanting to come into detecting and starting the hobby. It's the age-old question: where do we start? How do we start this intriguing hobby of metal detecting? And the questions always are along the same theme of, I've always wanted to buy a detector, I've never got round to doing it, but now I'm thinking seriously of buying a detector, and how do I go about starting off the hobby? So I'm hoping I can put this short film together just based around giving advice to people that are coming into the hobby, the do's and the don'ts, and keeping it as simplistic as possible, because that's the key: simplistic. This hobby to me is all about simplistic, easy, stress-free, everything else. Why complicate things? So the first thing I say to people when they're coming into the hobby and thinking of buying a detector: have you got a plan in your head whereabouts you're going to go detecting? Fantastic buying a detector. We sell many detectors, as you guys probably know, and there's a lot of our customers that watch this channel, which is once again heartwarming for me. But before you buy a detector, just have a little think about where you're going to actually use it, because it's okay buying the most expensive kit or the most up-to-date metal detector or whatever, but if you've got nowhere to use it, what are you going to do? Panic and think, oh God, I've got this wonderful detector here, that's all singing and all dancing, but I've got really nowhere to use it other than the beach. And of course the beach is a difficult place to detect. It's okay on the dry sand and shingle, but when you venture out into the wet sand where the gold rings and things could be lying, it's a whole new ball game. Only certain detectors can work properly on wet sand, remember. Single frequency machines need dampening down, discrimination built into them. Pulse induction machines and multi-frequency machines fare much better on the wet sand because of the mineralization in the salt, etc. So just have a little think about, if you're buying a machine and you've got nowhere to use it, and you head to the beach for the first time and you take it out on the wet sand and all hell breaks loose, you go walking back to the car with a disappointed face. So the first things first, make sure you've got somewhere to use it, even if it's a small paddock somewhere. A little bit of land from a friend that owns horses, 2 or 3 acres. That's somewhere to start. Start small, work outwards. Don't target these 600 to 1,000 acre farms, because the chances of you getting on are very slim. I always say to people coming into the hobby for permission, start small. Friends and family, they may know somebody with a small field or a couple of acres or whatever, even an orchard, whatever it may be, but that's your starting point and your first introduction into this wonderful hobby. So start small, work outwards, and of course once you gain your first permission, that small patch of land that you're going to be detecting on, then you can start using that as a case study to build and look at other farms. And of course the people that own that small parcel of land that you've just got permission on may know other farmers and other landowners, and they could introduce you to them and you could get more permission off the back of it. So that is the way in. But of course that isn't just it all. You've also got to think about your detector. Now, like I said earlier at the start of the film, we have loads and loads of people asking us about how they go about getting into the hobby of detecting, and I always say to them, there's a common myth, and the myth is you don't have to break the bank to get a decent detector. So the misconception out there of people saying you've got to buy the best, you've got to spend over £1,000 to get the best machines, because the rest of them are rubbish. It's absolute poppycock. You don't have to break the bank to get a decent detector to enjoy the hobby. A few £100 gets you a decent machine. On the right land, it'll pull up the goodies for you. Metal detectors over the years have developed unbelievably since the days I first started. And believe it or not, the detectors I was buying in the 1980s, late 80s, were slightly more expensive to the lower end ones that are available now, believe it or not. So it just shows you. So that myth is exploded. You don't have to break the bank. There's plenty of introductory machines out there if you choose the right one that will do the business. Lightweight, ease of use, decent performance. And some of them have got weatherproof features built into them, which is an extra bonus. But don't panic that you've got to buy the best, because you haven't. It's all about enjoyment and ease of use. And a lot of these low-end machines, introductory machines, mid-range machines, it's very simplistic to use. They've got great performance and they won't cost you an arm and a leg. And of course, detecting to a degree is one of the only hobbies that gives something back. You could go out there and find a load of pound coins and £2 coins and 50p's. You're starting to pay off your investment straight away. And of course, if you're lucky enough to find gold and silver, happy days. So, rule number one, always get a little bit of permission before you start detecting. There's no point in buying a detector and thinking I've got nowhere to use it. It just defeats the object. And secondly, you do not have to break the bank when it comes to buying a detector. Third one, the advice I'm going to give to people coming into the hobby is, don't go out and buy a whole host of accessories. There is a scene out there in the fishing game, and I suppose it comes over to the detecting game also, is tackle tart. You see all these tackle tarts, all the gear, no idea, as they say. They've got everything. You name it, they turn up at these organised digs with the best machine, with their finds pouch with probes dangling from it and small digging tools and you name it, hanging from it, finds boxes. They've got all the gear. They've got the latest stainless steel spade. They've got everything. They've got all the t-shirts. They've got the caps. They've got the gloves. But they've only just started. Why go to that sort of length? I always think, and this is me personally, going out in the field, I keep it as simplistic as possible. And some of the guys that I detect with personally from time to time also have the same philosophy. You don't want to be bogged down in the field with everything hanging from you. Water bottle's okay in the heat, you've got to have it, that's fine. Your probes hanging from your lanyard, you've got another little digging tool, trowel thing hanging from your finds pouch. You've got everything hanging from you, you've got the spade over your shoulder, you've got a detector. Just keep it nice and simple. You don't have to go out and break the bank and buy loads of accessories. Now, as a business, it's fantastic that people buy off us, and I'm probably doing myself out of a lot of business by saying this, but just get your detector. You don't have to buy the most expensive of spades. Go in your garden shed if you've got a garden. You've got a spade in there, that'll do the job. It might not cut the turf as neatly as some of the detecting spades do, but in time you can learn how to use that spade effectively and don't have to go out and break the bank on buying a brand new one. That digging tool that's been in your shed for 5 or 10 years still does the job. I mean, some of them are pretty old and naff and wooden handles that'll break, but I'm damn sure that some of you guys have got decent spades out there that you'll be able to use for detecting. And of course, the age-old question, do I need a probe? Probes are great because they save a lot of time and effort, but you've also got a pinpoint function on your detector. So I always say to people when they say, do I need a probe? The business side of me thinks, well, I'm going to make a sale here because I'm going to sell a probe to this gentleman. But you think about it, do you actually need a probe right from the word go? Not really, because you've got to get used to your detector, get used to detecting first, digging holes, pinpointing them, extracting the finds from the ground, and then if a few months down the line, if you think a probe's going to make the job much better, get a probe. Don't go out and spend an absolute fortune on gear that you may or may not use. So keep it simple. Don't go out and buy everything all at once or the most expensive, because it just defeats the object. Keep the hobby nice and simplistic. Keep your feet on the ground, as they say. Keep your coil on the ground and just enjoy the hobby. Now, there's a lot of people, I think, a heck of a lot of people that buy detectors that use it for the first time and it absolutely confuses them. The tones confuse them. You know, a lot of machines give iron grunts and high tone, so there's a 2, 3, 4 tone system going on in the machine sometimes, and it completely confuses people. But if they get used to knowing that the grunts are going to be something to ignore, and the iron targets, that's the right word, targets, and the VDI numbers on the screen, if they've got a screen, are showing low numbers and it's indicating iron, just walk away from it. Don't stand there scratching your head and thinking, oh, I don't like the sound of that, I don't know if there's a fault on my machine. That machine is telling you, it's speaking to you and telling you that there's a problem under the ground and it's called iron, and walk away from it. I mean, by all means, dig it and get used to them targets and have a look, physically have a look at what's under the search code, but 9 times out of 10 it'd be absolute junk. Just work on them slight tones. You might get a decent one-way tone, you might get a banging two-way signal. By all means, dig them, because they're the ones that you're going to be looking for. But the machine is clever enough to tell you that there's junk under the ground and that you should be walking away from it and ignoring it. By all means, investigate it, but don't think that iron grunt in the ground is going to turn out to be a decent two-way signal when you're walking 360 degrees around it, because that's telling you it's iron. Some of these machines are very, very capable around iron, believe me. So that's another one, because you get a lot of people getting confused about machines. Even the most simplistic machines are starting to confuse people at times. It's not like that. It's a very simplistic hobby. The more you use that machine, the more you get used to it, the more tests you do with it, the more time you walk out with it in the field swinging it, the better you become as a detectorist. There's a heck of a lot of detectorists starting the hobby out there that'll buy one and maybe you only use it once every 6 months because of work commitments, family commitments. They may be away with work. They ain't going to get used to the machine anytime soon, so they need to dedicate a little bit of time and effort just to get used to the performance of the machine, how it speaks, how it operates, how it works, and its features, and then they'll soon click into the hobby. It's like everything, the more you do it, the better you'll become at it, and it's a wonderful hobby to get into. It really is. You'll find some terrific things. I mean, we had a guy at the weekend went out with his machine, a pretty inexpensive machine that he bought off us actually, and he went on a dig. I think it was in the Yorkshire area, Doncaster, Yorkshire area. Anyway, and I think, you know, he loves his little machine. He used it, and he was the only guy that found a hammered, and he was using one of the introductory machines that he bought off us, and people couldn't believe it. You know, there was a lot of people there with more expensive machines, a lot more expensive machines, treble the price in some respects, and he was the only guy that came back to the car at the end of the day with an Elizabeth I 3p. And it's because he walked over it. His machine was capable enough to find it. No whistles and bells, no fancy gadgets. He found it and he was happy, and it made me happy. So I hope that helps. I mean, some of you guys on here that have been detecting a long time can help out here, because you can also comment and leave some of your own input into advice about how to start off. I mean, I've covered permission first, keeping it simple. You don't have to break the bank. You don't have to go out and buy a whole, you know, heap of accessories. Keep it straightforward, keep it simple. But some of you detectorists that watch this, some of you seasoned detectorists, may also have some hints and tips that you would like to share with us. So that would be good if you could do that. Metal detecting is a wonderful hobby and it should remain that way. And I always say to people, don't overcomplicate the situation. In the future, once you're used to it and you start finding things and you're building your collection up of coins and artifacts, which is what it's all about, you may decide to upgrade your introductory low-end mid-range machine to something better. By all means do that, but at first get used to the machine. There's too many people, in my opinion, buying metal detectors and writing them off after the first session. It's the wrong thing to do. You're bouncing around from machine to machine. You're never going to get used to that particular detector if you keep using it, not enjoying the experience because you don't understand it, and then thinking about buying another one. It's a dealer's dream because you're buying and buying and buying. We had one guy in Cumbria that bought an eye watering 7 machines in 3 months or 4 months. I mean, it's only because he couldn't get, you know, he couldn't get used to the particular machine. He didn't have it in him to get used to the machines. He didn't have the patience. He wanted instant results. Them instant results will only come if you're going to get used to the particular detector that you've bought. All detectors are capable. They all do pretty much the same thing within reason. They will all find you good things if you have the time, patience and effort to put in to get used to that particular machine. It's a no-brainer. So if that's any advice I can give you on top of everything else that was spoke about today, is stick with what you've got. You've made the right choice. Keep it simple, lightweight, good performance. There's the boxes ticked. Keep saying it time and time again. If you've ticked them 3 boxes, there's no nothing stopping you going out there, getting used to that machine and finding some wonderful things. I hope that helps, folks. Thank you for watching. It's been a pleasure again, and I'll see you on Friday for the next episode of Detecting Talk. Stay cool. Bye for now.